Okay, so this issue is going to be about the private ownership of online spaces. Specifically, we're going to look at the controversy of MySpace, the censorship that has been going on there, and how people are upset about it. But what this is really about is the idea that nothing online is public, a public space. So let's do some analogizing, if we could. Let's look at what we do in real life. Now, you have free speech, right? If you want to walk down a street and you want to give out brochures about protesting Nike's use of sweatshop workers, for example, like you want to say something about that, you're allowed to do that. It's a public space as long as you're not, making a scene or assaulting anybody. You can walk down the street and talk about it or hand out leaflets about it, and it's fine. It's a public space. Who's going to stop you? But imagine you try to do that same thing inside a Nike store. So you go into a Nike store and you want to hand out pamphlets protesting their use of sweatshop labor. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to ask you to leave. Do they have a right to ask you to leave? Yes, they do, because they own that store. They have control over what goes on in that store. So if they ask you to leave, you got to leave. Now imagine for a second that every place is owned like that, because that's what online is like. There is no public online space, unless you count maybe government websites, that kind of thing. So what we're going to talk about is MySpace. And I chuckle when I say that because you remember when MySpace used to matter before there was Facebook? But let's talk about this. MySpace was bought out at some point by News Corporation, which you will probably know as Fox News, 20th Century Fox movies, that kind of, you probably get Fox Rochester on your TV or whatever, that company. That's headed by a guy named Rupert Murdoch. And he has a reputation of, he owns this huge media empire. He has a reputation for using this media empire for his own purposes. Fox News in particular takes a lot of criticism for being really one-sided about all sorts of stuff. So, and they've been caught falsifying news stories and stuff recently. So you have a not terribly reputable company headed by a not terribly reputable man taking over MySpace. And what people found on this was that, if you've never been on MySpace, it's user-generated content. So it's like Facebook. You have a page, and you can put whatever you want on that page. So you can put up, your history of your own life, pictures. You can put up music and video and whatever else, right? Like it's user-generated content. So what you want, and what people are complaining about is that MySpace is censoring user-generated content. So you'll have someone who puts up a MySpace page that is critical of Rupert Murdoch, that says the things that I just said about him, that he's, biased and that kind of thing. That page may mysteriously disappear for violating its terms of service agreement. A page that links to an outside service, say this has happened outside video service, instead of to MySpace's own video service, oops, that's blocked. That kind of thing. Let's see if we've got. Yeah. It's also censored political advertising. So if you have a particular political view you want to put out to the public, you can buy ad space just like you could on TV or on the side of a bus or whatever. To put that out, if the message is not one that MySpace likes, like Fox and that corporation tends to be pretty right-wing Republican type people, if the message is not in line with what they believe, the ad isn't run. And that's happened a number of times. I'm going to give you a website after this which sort of lists all of those, and I haven't really found a better sort of list than the one I'm going to give you. But if you can find one, let me know, because I hate having only one point of view on a subject, right? So we have that. So why is this a problem? Well, imagine if everywhere, if you were walking around the street, and literally everywhere, if you spoke your mind, there was somebody who could come down and say, I own this piece of property, and I don't want you saying that here. Imagine if in real life, if that was the case, literally everywhere you go. And that's a problem if that allows to happen online, right? So the idea was that they're censoring freedom of speech. So if you're censoring user-made stuff, that equals censoring freedom of speech. And the problem is that if this is challenged in court and people say it's okay, then and anyone can do it, then we have internet which is dominated by large media companies that could simply tell you that you're not allowed to say anything against large media companies, or to just delete you if you do. That's what I say when I say private ownership, and that goes into the whole idea of freedom on the internet, that we have it now in practice. It may or may not continue to be that way. Here's the other thing. So here's the counter argument. Is this really happening? Some people say no. It's not really happening. It was a mistake. It was a violation of the terms of service, so it was different than what people think it was. It wasn't actually censorship. It was something else. And other people say, well, you have freedom of speech. Like, I'm sure if you have a blog, you have a Facebook page, nobody's ever come to you and said, like, you got to take this post down because we don't like it. Nobody's ever said that to you, right? But, like, Blogger, for example, is owned by Google. So could you make something critical of Google? And how popular could that get before Google asked you to get rid of it or just shut it down somehow? Or, like, Facebook is independent right now. It's owned by a Facebook company. If Facebook were to be purchased by a news corporation or by something like that, do you think that it would allow a page that was critical of its parent company? That kind of thing. So I'm going to ask you some questions about that in this little thought experiment. I think we're close to the end here.